welcome to this another episode of ECCB Connects. This week we'll be looking at a very important question. Are you good at managing your money? And to do this, I have with me Chief Executive Officer of the Eastern Caribbean Institute of Banking and Financial Services, Mr. Analdo Bailey. Mr. Bailey, welcome to ECCB Connects.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and I trust that we not only connect with each other, but we'll connect with the audience, because it is certainly an important issue or topic that is of much relevance to all of us.
Yes, Mr. Bailey, I'd like to start with a quote which says, "Money, like emotions, is something you must control to keep your life on the right track."
You're so right, because money for me is part of life. And we all know that once your emotions are not in control, then you generally get into trouble. And so many of us are in financial trouble. So hopefully we'll be able to explore how are we to extricate ourselves. That is, how can we move away from being in trouble into a place of more harmony and balance.
How does one start this process then of ensuring that they're in good financial health and their financial issues are intact and controlled?
Well, what I say to you, I'm sure that most of us think that we do not have enough money. And so we are thinking and hoping that we'll always acquire more or get more money. But it is not a question of having enough money. It is how to manage what we have. That is the crux of the matter. And there is a statement, in fact, it's a quotation from someone who we know quite well. It says, "Too many people spend money they have not earned to buy things they don't want, to impress people they don't like." And that is from Will Smith. And so the question is, many of us do things in relation to money based on emotions, and that is not good. Anything that we must manage well, we must be able to measure. And so the first step in money management is to know how to measure both your income and your expenses. If you're not doing that, then you're not in control, and therefore likely to end in some difficulty.
And this measurement starts with, as we know, having a budget.
Indeed. Again, what simply is to have some sense of all of your inflows, that is what is coming in, the various sources of income, and where are they flowing to. If you do not do that, there could become a situation where there's a mismatch. That is, it is like having an inflow of maybe a pipe. Imagine water's flowing, and so your intake is 1 inch, but the outflow is a 10 inch. Then you're asking for trouble. And so the first thing is to know your sources of income. And income is not only salary. It could be that you have investment, could be coming from interest. It could be also coming from not only interest, dividends, or you have house rent, or there's some other job that you might be doing that is somehow. In fact, these days, we have some people are saying that child support is it certainly is a valuable source of income. And so measure all these sources, note them, and then determine where are the outflow. Of course, we do have, of course, food and clothes and rent and these days, electricity, but the big one, utilities, and of course, it has to do with paying phones. That is, we pay to bang our mouth so much. And so we need to have an appreciation that we must take control for us to really be in balance.
How does one go about this? You talk about having a budget. How does an individual or a family go through this process of making a budget?
Indeed. Well, it is simply, what is required is that there must be someone who takes charge in the family, who knows the various sources of income from the various persons who are part of the family. And of course, some men would think that, well, the man is in charge and he's bringing in the money, so therefore he should be the one who should be apportioning. But I have found that is not necessarily the way to go about it. Because in any relationship, there's some who might be better than the other in some area. In my case, I prefer to allow my wife to control my money. So she's the one who takes it and she apportions.
She's the Minister of Finance?
And I'm Minister of Labor. You see? And so I'm quite comfortable with that. And so I believe that what one should do is to seek to leverage the skills and competencies that are part of the unit. And so that person would then be able to list all of the sources and then begin to make a determination as to what they're spending money on. And it is so important because by just taking note of where you're spending money, and the realization is then, why do I spend so much money on, say, cable? I have all the channels, but how often do we watch cable? The children are not watching cable anymore because they're on their cell phone. So why continue to pay so much? In fact, you might begin to look at utilities, because there's some folks who would want to be ironing 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. Every time you don't want to shut up pants. And again, when you begin to look at utilities and your expense, you might then choose to now do it differently. And so by beginning to monitor and measure, then you can begin to manage. And that is important in terms of having a budget, helping you to manage your income and expense and your outflows, and therefore your income.
You mentioned that, within the family, you might have one person who is good at keeping records and doing the budget. But should budgeting be one person in the family, or would you recommend it be a family, that the entire family should get involved in preparing the budget?
Of course, they must be involved, because they are the ones who might be bringing in, and even if they're not bringing in, they're the one who incur in expense. For example, I have had this incident in that my children, they TV, they watch, they buy stuff, and when you get home, sometime you notice that they ate maybe half of the package and the rest is to be thrown away. They drink some, and it is all thrown away after. And so you try to speak to them, listen, no, that is money. Mm-hmm. And they seem to lack the ability to transfer. Well, okay, just only the drink. So one day you got home and said, okay, how much of that did you drink? Daddy, about half. So I took a $5 bill and I tore it in half. They said, Daddy, what are you doing destroying money? Mm-hmm. I said, okay, the drink costs about $5 and you are going to throw away half. So basically what you're doing is throwing away money. So here, throw away the money. But you can't do that, Daddy. I said, that is what you're doing every day. Mm-hmm. And so the point is to have people to the point where they're realizing that they're contributing to the outflow or the inflow, then they too can be more responsible. And so if it is done by just one person, then that realization is not necessarily going to be impacting all the participants, which is really required. So inclusion.
Right, because everybody within the family, you might have more than one person contributing to the income. Everybody is contributing to the expenses, the outflow.
Indeed.
So I guess if they come together, they'll have a better understanding of how it works. Let's say you're putting your budget together and you realize that you're spending more than you're earning.
Well, again, that tells you that the system is not working, and the system is going to just now put you in a place of deficit. And so once again, inflow of 1 inch and outflow of 10 inch. Therefore, there's nothing in the reservoir because it is passing through and it's not enough. And so you have a drought. And once you begin to have a drought, then what are you going to do? Beg, borrow, and they all do have consequences. So it is important that families have this appreciation. There must be a balance between inflow and outflow. Otherwise, the system itself is going to be under stress. And once the system is under stress in relation to money, I can assure you, everything else is going to be under stress, whether it is your comfort, whether it is the cohesion in the family. Once you have money problems, it certainly is going to impact all aspects of the relationship.
Mr. Bailey, one of the issues that I often hear with respect to even business management is that issue of poor record keeping or no record keeping within the business sphere. But I guess as we're speaking about managing money within the household context, it is relevant. And so with respect to budgeting, there's also the importance of tracking spending.
Perhaps it is something to do with, I'm not sure if that was schooling, but we are not people who are very numeric in that we seek to avoid numbers. And so we get into what we call value judgment. Oh, that was good. It is expensive. It's cheap.
It's long.
It's long. It's hard. It's soft. And there's no real measurement. Mm-hmm. And so for you to manage anything properly, you must be able to measure. And certainly measurement means keeping a record of the facts, not what you think or you feel. And so it is required in a family that we must keep the numbers. You must know exactly how much is going out and how much is coming in. And so I always recommend write down your expenditure, that you know exactly how much of your income, what percentage is going in what area. It is key, because if you're not measuring, then you cannot manage.
One of the other issues with respect to budgeting and managing money is this issue of what we want versus what we need. Our want list tends to be really, really, really long, while the needs, we know what the basic needs are. What word do you have then to encourage people to focus on needs and how to manage their wants?
Advertising constantly is telling us what we need. And in fact, that's not true. What they're telling us is that is a want. You want this, you want it just to keep up with the image that you have been established through the television or some other mean of advertisement. And so a need is something that is critical, that if I do not have this, then it is going to somehow place me in a worse position. Whether it is worse in terms of how I not just see myself, but in terms of naturally, we need food, we need shelter, we need education. And so what are those things that are important to us and make life meaningful? And so it's important that we have this appreciation in terms of wanting to be here, there, and everywhere, all the entertainments and the parties and so on.
The latest gadgets.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And so that is what we need to do, because so often advertising on TV, radio, and the paper is to have us to spend, not to save. And so we end up thinking that, okay, I need to spend, I need to have, but yet you're not concentrating on what that means for you, on the imbalance that it is creating in your life. And so learn to differentiate between a want and a need. A need certainly is something that is very difficult to do without. A want is that I can avoid that, I can put it off, I can defer it, I can put it until some other time. And why is it necessary to take me along the path that I truly want to go? And so part of wants and need is to have a vision of what you wish to accomplish. And once you have that vision, identify those things that are going to help you along the path towards that accomplishment.
It's easy that you're saying it, but I consider the difficulty within a family setting. You can say that to adults and they can probably process it. But think about, you have children at home. They don't care about needs versus want. Is that this thing here? And everything is I need. Mommy, I need. Daddy, I need this right now. So how do parents get the children to understand
to have an
what's really important?
Yeah. Sometimes what you have to do is to deny them whatever this thing is, and they'll say, but okay, you're still alive, still functioning, so really and truthfully you could do without. And so it is to somehow begin to establish in the minds of children that there's some things that they can do without. And once they begin to have an appreciation that I'm not going to die, I'm not going to be any worse off if I do not obtain, then that is a discipline that is required. And so true. We believe that what is seen on TV, that is the lifestyle that we should model. And so therefore, what they've acquired, all the gadgets and images, I need those for me to be a person, which is not true. And again, the question is measure and manage. That is, you must know how much is coming in and how much can I accomplish. Do I want all the channel TV? Do I want the latest cell phone? What it means for us in terms of helping the family to progress and advance economically. And so that again is going to take us into another area. If we are into what is called conspicuous consumption, that we are consuming, and people, yes, right? What it means for us as people and as communities and as an ethnic group, if we are constantly into consumption, then there's no investment. And if there's no investment truly, then there's no growth and development. Growth and development requires investment, not just expenditure on consumption. And so we have to make that distinction. For us to progress as a family, as a community, as a nation, it has to do with where do we invest our resources. And consumption is not investment. I am consuming, and that adds very little towards the progress and advancement of whether it is a family or a nation.
Mr. Bailey, this is a very interesting and useful topic, but we're out of time, so we'll have to pick up next week. But before we go, we just want to reflect on the issues, the pointers you touched on with respect to personal financial management. We know, of course, you have to evaluate your financial health. Budgeting is very important. You have to measure, keep records, track your spending, differentiate, identify your needs versus your wants. And in this context, you have to bring in the children because their want list is usually very long. And we have to look at the issue of investments rather than just consuming and it's gone. We have to look to the future and start to think about investing, making our money work for us.
Right. And there's the statement that says, God multiplies the seeds that are sown, not the seeds that are hoarded or consumed. And it is so true. If you're going to consume everything and there's nothing left to be planted or sown, then where's the increase going to come from? And so remember this, God multiplied the seeds that are sown, not the seeds that are hoarded or consumed.
Mr. Bailey, thank you very much for speaking with us on ECCB Connects.
My privilege and pleasure.
You're watching ECCB Connects, protecting our currency, developing our region. To view any episode of ECCB Connects, anytime, any place, at your convenience, check out our YouTube channel, ECCB Connects.
This brings us to the end of another episode of ECCB Connects. Do join us again next week when we'll continue this interesting topic. We'll be looking at savings and investment.